Hello and welcome everyone, I am Madals and welcome to another Heart of the Swarm beta cast. Today it is gonna be a TVP, it is on Antigua Shipyard. They're in the cross-spawn positions because it is forced now. And let me introduce these two players. So, in the right position we do have Team Mouse Esports, the red Terran player. It is HeRoMaRinE, who is actually pretty cool. He's really young and generally making a couple of shockwaves. He qualified for the ESEG UK Masters and took out some really good big name players along the way doing that, so really someone to look out for. His opponent down in the lower left is the blue Protoss, ShoWTimE. So again, someone who's really quite well known, great player. I believe they're both in GM on the beta ladder, at least I'm fairly sure they are. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure someone will in the chat below, but again, this should be a good little matchup. So what does TVP have in store? There's lots of different things you can do, but I'd say the Protoss is really becoming the more fleshed out race. Terran hasn't changed much in terms of TVP, other than mech is a bit more viable. And really the one thing I'm really going to be looking out for is what the Mothership Core does, whether it's going to be aggressive or defensive, because that is what really can sum up the difference between someone who is going to be a greedy expander through some aggression, or whether they're just going to sit back and turtle up. Meanwhile for Terran, things like a stim +1 timing push is incredibly strong still. It's a very good build. Hellions are good because a Hellion opener is always good, but it tend to funnel people into a bit of an awkward situation. But now you've got Widow Mines as well, which one-shot sentries and stalkers. That just means that, and zealots as well, that you can really turtle up behind that and make sure that a little bit of gateway pressure won't kill you. Other things, you can obviously get more fun things like a second Rax coming down very early on, so very aggressive style openings. Just with a lot of Marines, they're great too. Tanks, since they don't need siege mode, you can hit some nice timing windows with that. Hellions as well, the other reason that they're quite potent in Heart of the Swarm over Wings of Liberty is just due to when you morph them into Hellbat, you're already going up to Medevacs, and then Hellbats can be healed by Medevacs as well. So that makes for some very, very interesting playstyles, some very thorough, very difficult and tough pushes that really a lot of Protoss players can struggle with. So you've got to be on your toes, you've got to make sure that you're scouting out effectively. We see the two workers just running by each other there, taking a little look about what could be going on, but this SCV just going to come up and see that there's one gas, one gate, one cybercore, nothing to be worried about. Meanwhile though, ShoWTimE's going to have a bit less fun because this wall off is now complete. If the supply depot goes off, won't see the two barracks, and therefore won't be really preparing for the fact that there's going to be an awful lot of Marines coming out very quickly. So as you can see, just one Marine sitting on the high ground there. A second Marine is going to show itself. The probe coming through and doesn't actually spot both those Marines yet, so that could catch it a little off guard. HeRoMaRinE just slightly off the mark, and the supply depot is unfortunately down and is not going to go up in time, so in comes the probe. Will the probe see the second barracks? No, not yet, it won't, but from the rally point it is going to go over there and will spot it all out, so that is going to be a great scout for ShoWTimE. Coming over, spots the barracks now. That really reveals precisely what ShoWTimE needs to know, that potentially there is going to be a lot of Marines on its way over. We do have the Mothership Core coming out as well here, so this is just staying to a standard play at the moment. ShoWTimE taking his Nexus behind this. The command center also coming up to HeRoMaRinE, so he's just got a good number of Marines out. It's not an all-in or anything like that. He's not been aggressive with them, especially now it's scouted. Instead, just getting a nice defensive force, making sure that he's safe from any early aggression the Protoss player could be throwing at him. And this Zealot and Stalker are going to have less than no fun. They very well could die if they aren't exceptionally careful. The second gateway is now on its way down for ShoWTimE as well. Warp Gate Tech half down, a third gateway being added on, so one gate into the Nexus, into two additional gateways, a very standard opening. Meanwhile, HeRoMaRinE taking his first gas now, getting up a third barracks as well, so he'll probably take a second gas fairly soon. That will just allow him, more than anything, to just be able to start getting out tech such as stim. He'll need that tech lab down fairly soon. The Zealot is going to be coming up, and there's no Marines around at the moment. Two should be out shortly. The rest of the Marines were just going to go and retake the watchtower. They have... Where is that Stalker? There was a Stalker out, and... There we go. So it just came back as far as I'm aware. Unless one died. Let's take a look. Oh no, actually it got taken out. I missed that. So that is a pretty big loss at this moment in time for ShoWTimE losing that. But the Zealot also going to go down. Good Marine splitting. Good micro out of HeRoMaRinE. And therefore he only loses one Marine there. Probably could have saved it if he just pulled it back a bit further. But to be honest, getting the Stalker as well, that is just great news. The Mothership Core trying to just sit here, be defensive. The three warp gates are now morphing in. And that just will result in there being a bit more of a potential for getting out some more gateway units. The robotics facility is also down. HeRoMaRinE, second gas factory coming out, so no early tech lab, instead just really trying to get out a few factory units. May go straight up towards that starport, get some medevacs out. Alternatively, a couple of widow mines would be a good thing for defense. Put 2 down here straight away at the natural ramp. Should your opponent try and walk up, you could take some big damage. Here comes the scan, sees everything, sees all the gateways, sees the robotics facility, sees both gas are down, and with that, that really identifies for the Terran player precisely what he's going to be up against, and he should be able to prepare quite appropriately for it. So a second factory now being added on here. This is quite an interesting build. So we've got 3 barracks, 2 factories. Are we going to see any add-ons? That's what I'm waiting to spot. Are we going to see more widow mines, for example? No, we're going to be seeing a tech lab. So this is straight away becoming quite interesting. This one stalker just happily chilling around there. Second stalker at the watchtower. We also have the another observer on its way out, or is that first observer on its way out? So scouting information is going to be generated by that. ShoWTimE really needs to identify these 2 factories are down, because otherwise you can run into a little bit of problems. We've got a tank on its way out very early on. That, without siege mode needing to be researched, just gives you the option to really defend up nicely, especially if you position the tank up here or up here. You can cover all of that RAM without really putting it at any risk. Meanwhile, back for ShoWTimE, he's getting up his robotics bay, he's getting up his forge, so upgrades and colossi will be hitting the field shortly. Meanwhile, a third command center getting constructed for HeRoMaRinE. He's desperately trying to get up to get a good economy, try and put ahead of his opponent, because currently he's a bit behind. 38 SCVs to the 46 probes. Mules level that out probably quite evenly if we take a quick look, and indeed, yeah, it's slightly in favor of HeRoMaRinE in terms of the minerals, but slightly in favor of ShoWTimE for the gas. And that's to be expected just because there's only 1 SCV mining from that gas geyser at the moment compared to the 3 that ShoWTimE has. Tank is in a nice position. The second tank is also on its way out. This factory does have a reactor on it, but is only produced 2 head-ins. A bit of a macro slip here out of HeRoMaRinE could really do with getting more production out of that, because otherwise you're just wasting production cycles, which when you've already got the command center out is not something you desperately want to be doing. Meanwhile, armory's coming down, so that means Hellbats can start morphing. A third factory being added on, so mech is on its way out, which is something that typically you wouldn't see against Protoss oh so often, unless of course it was Goody or someone in Wings of Liberty. But in Heart of the Swarm, you can put up this nice defensive position. These 2 tanks with the bunker, it'd be very difficult for a Protoss player to attack up into that, so that's why it is getting more popular. You've also got the Widow Mines, which we haven't actually seen yet. Hellbats add a lot of damage to Zealots. It bolsters up the front line. The really mech, you could get countered by a lot of Zealots or basically gateway units just pushing up in, but Hellbats really deal with that effectively, so that's why we're seeing more and more Terran players go for it, and there indeed are the Hellbats morphing. This was before it required an upgrade from the tech lab, so this is fine, everything looking fairly good. Now we've got the third Nexus coming down, the third orbital command just floating its way across, gonna go and land there. We'll probably also see the bunker get salvaged, as I was expecting, and the tanks will now just move forward and take a bit more of a forward defensive position, because to be honest, for Terran players it's not too hard holding this area. It should be fairly easy. We do have a couple of hallucinated Phoenix, or just the 1 hallucinated Phoenix. There's also the observer on the map as well, coming to get all of the scout off. If we look at the vision, saw the third command center there, knows that really there's additional factories, now sees the starport with the reactor on it. That's an important little thing to spot there. And with all of that, really now ShoWTimE, he knows what his opponent's doing, getting down that Templar archive, also starting to produce the Immortals, which is very nice to see. Just a single Colossus out, which if it was scouted by HeRoMaRinE, he may overreact and may decide to try and chuck down some more Vikings, but not doing that at the moment. The pylon just getting positioned quite nicely. Another probe coming up here, probably going to put down a second proxy pylon just to make sure that he's got all of the vision. A couple of Widow Mines being placed, that's going to help deal with a couple of gateway units as they come marching on up. And between all of this, I'd say these two still looking fairly similar. The worker count now actually in HeRoMaRiNE's favour, 65 to 62. With the 3 mules as well, that means his income is going to be quite considerably more than that of the Protoss player. But the Protoss player has got Storm researching, has got the High Templar out. A good little scout out there actually sees that, hey, only the 1 Colossus, believe it saw the Immortal, so that should cause a bit of a reduction in the number of Vikings that are going to come out. Because one thing the Terran players do need to be careful of is messing up their late game army composition. Too many Vikings against, say, 1 Colossus, you're just going to have wasted supply. But as we can see, the Ghost Academy getting started, ready to deal with those High Templar that's been seen. So the tech switch identified very quickly. Meanwhile, for ShoWTimE, he's getting down his Dark Shrine, he's getting up his second forward, so we'll start the double upgrades. The upgrades for HeRoMaRinE, he's got +1 vehicle weapons, also started +2 vehicle weapons, but only going for single upgrades at the moment, so no vehicle armor as of yet. The War Prism could add in some interesting plays, some quick resupplies, potentially some drop action as well, but this is the scary thing. We do see that while the watchtower is held and we'll see all this force coming, those Marines are going to get slaughtered in the center of the map. The scan goes off, just gets a full read on, okay, what has my opponent got? Sees the High Templar, doesn't know that Storm's about to finish but can assume it, and that means that HeRoMaRinE just wants to get into a nice defensive position, sieging up all of these tanks, keeping a couple up on the high ground just in case this first wave gets a bit damaged, so that's good. Actually going to move some of these up onto the high ground, which is a really nice positional play, using the terrain to his advantage, so definitely like that, and desperately wants to be able to hold off any aggression that could be coming in. Fourth command center on its way down, can just float over to here, but with this proxy pylon down there, could be harassed later on if we do get into the late game. More proxy pylons coming out literally everywhere across the map at the moment. Other than that, a second robotics facility on its way for ShoWTimE. That's going to allow him to quickly switch into the double Colossus production. He's also getting up these 2 Stargates, so that's just going to allow him to get some Void Rays out, which would be very nice indeed. So also some Tempest potentially could be coming out just to help deal with those tanks from afar without taking damage. So all looking very good for both of these two players at the moment. HeRoMaRinE up to 180 supply, nearly maxed out. His production is still looking very good. He's got the double command center in production as well, so he could look to double expand. This War Prism getting taken out by a missile turret before it even gets a chance to get in. So good static defense though, and you can actually see that these missile turrets are leaving nothing to chance. They are just covering the entire edge. The single sensor tower as well will show a good movement of anything coming in. The Marines, unfortunately, going to their death, but do see that yes, the army's still in the center of the map. Still knows what's coming out. Some Void Rays are in production. Now the fourth base trying to get taken by ShoWTimE, but this is where things can get a little bit fun. The War Prism is going to try and come in 2 DPs, getting walked in 2 Zealots, but I'm not quite sure where this War Prism is intending on going, because I don't actually believe there's an angle it can get in at without taking an awful lot of damage. Maybe I could drop it, but you're going to have to be very careful. Oh, War Prism speed is done. I didn't notice that earlier. So that means that in come the DTs. This is going to be frustrating. Quite a few Zealots are going to go down. The War Prism needs to be careful. Going to warp in some more units. Going to just be 3 more DTs. So a big commitment to that, which is quite interesting when you know that there's so many missile turrets down. That is one thing that is kind of a bit of a head scratcher, but obviously as long as he stays away from that, it should be fine. Scans probably going to be forced to go down. We see that a couple of these units are getting taken out, but no significant damage done yet, apart from to the mineral line. So none of these production facilities taken out as of yet. A scan goes down. The Hellbats and Ghost are going to be able to clean all of that out. But if we look here, 19 workers killed. That has actually put ShoWTimE ahead by just under 20 workers, so that is going to be very beneficial for him. But with these additional command centers being pumped out everywhere, more orbital commands I have no doubt will be up and running soon. Just means that actually with this center gold base getting taken as well, the income is going to be very nice. A single DT there, frustrating as it is, just chipping away the tank. Does just survive though with the scan going down, so that is good move. Needs a missile turret out here for the detection, because otherwise those DTs are going to be running pretty wild. More Void Rays in production. We do have the +1 air weapons just complete as well now, and a little push just trying to retake the center of this map. So important on Antigua Shipyard to control the high ground in the center here, because otherwise this gold base will be in a lot of problems. But HeRoMaRinE just edging those tanks forward, trying to get in a nice position. But are we going to have an engagement here? Storm does go down, gets a couple of units, but the Vikings chipping away, trying to deal some damage. Another scan goes off. HeRoMaRinE wants to know, is it safe for me to move forward with my tanks? ShoWTimE forced back, does not want to be taking this engagement with a long, very dangerous siege tank line. But what he does want to be doing is warping in those Zealots and pushing them through, trying to come from the back. The Widowmine does chip out a few of those. The Hellbat probably going to come back to deal with the rest, and that means ShoWTimE forced back. Some more scans going off, just checking the center of the map to see, are there any units up there? Am I safe to move on up forward? Because once that's secured, it's going to be good times. This pylon is unbeknown to HeRoMaRinE at the moment, and that could be problematic for him. But he's got that planetary fortress in the center. The gold base is really going to be giving him some great income. The fourth base up for ShoWTimE as well though. So really, HeRoMaRinE needs to look at floating one of those orbital commands over to take a fifth as well, ideally, if he wants to stay ahead, because he is slightly behind in the worker count. Now, as we can see, more missile turrets coming down, just making sure those DTs are not going to be harassing the center of the map. The single hallucinated Phoenix dies very quickly to the Vikings. The Vikings down pretty high, but that's not a problem now there's more Voidways out, because 7 Voidways on the field are going to be very annoying. Unfortunately, Vikings are armored, so we'll take additional damage. And it looks like ShoWTimE is going to try and go for the engagement here. He is attacking from both angles, but the tank's dealing an awful lot of fire. The Immortals are trying to deal as much as they can. Some Storms trying to go off. The Voidways are focusing pretty badly. The Vikings, though, have been taken out, but that was a definite big win for HeRoMaRinE there. He completely annihilated that force. Most of his tanks stayed up and running perfectly happily. If we look at the upgrades, +3 vehicle weapons, but +2/3 upgrades for the Protoss ground force as well. But HeRoMaRinE, just with a great position, you don't really want to be pushing in to a big siege line, as we just saw there. ShoWTimE took significantly more losses, and that in itself is going to hurt him going into the later game. Even though he's got good income, so does HeRoMaRinE, and HeRoMaRinE now has the greater army as well. The upgrade advantage though for ShoWTimE is beneficial, sitting there with the 2/3 upgrades compared to 3/0 for HeRoMaRinE. He's also got the +3 weapons and a +1 armor coming out, and the +1 shields. So upgrading to the max, taking a 5th base as well. And HeRoMaRinE has yet to float down any of these orbital commands to take the additional mining bases. So if this Nexus gets up and running, that could bring ShoWTimE back into the game. This is really getting into the late macro stages. Some Archons being added in as well. That's going to help against just this mech force, just trying to push in, deal some more damage. But the big question is, HeRoMaRinE, even though he's got this strong, very strong mech army, he's got to push forward at some time. He can't just sit back and turtle all game long, and it's when he goes for that it could be problematic. We saw there that the Thor's activating high impact payload. That's going to allow them to do bonus damage to a single air unit, and that is what you want to be doing against, say, Voidways or Tempest or Carriers, as opposed to Mutalisks, where you want the splash damage. So this is just great play by both of these two. We do see now, though, that HeRoMaRinE is targeting this 4th base. I believe he knows it's up, if we take a look. Yep, so he knows it's there. There's the scan. Gets a good look. The tanks could get in a good position, but this does expose him slightly up on this high ground, but the tank line is still there. So is ShoWTimE going to be able to punch through? He's moving forward with these Zealots, with these Archons. Meanwhile, the 4th base is getting absolutely annihilated by HeRoMaRinE. But the 4th base for HeRoMaRinE, the gold base in the center, could be about to take some damage. We see the ShoWTimE punching straight through, dealing some nice damage, and the Planetary Fortress trying to get healed up as quickly as it can. But the tanks, they are doing some nice damage. The ground force is going to get taken out, but it's the Voidways that could be the problems. In come the Vikings from the side. They are going to have to try and do some nice damage, but it is too late. The Planetary Fortress has fallen, and a lot of SCVs went down there. So it was a base for a base. Meanwhile, the Hellbats have spotted this hidden 5th base and will be able to take it out. The Vikings doing some nice damage. The tanks, the Thors pushing forward. Still the supply advantage there for HeRoMaRinE, and well, it looks like ShoWTimE is very much on the run. His army is pinned, unfortunately, between his own base and HeRoMaRinE's army, so that means an engagement has to go down. The Thors, the tanks doing a lot of damage, but it looks like those Archons, those Voidways, able to deal an awful lot, and ShoWTimE, just with those units, those reinforcements coming from the side, will be the victor here. The Voidways just able to tear through this mech force, and this is causing HeRoMaRinE to go full on retreat. He does not have that many Vikings out on the field anymore, and that means the Voidways are pretty much free picking. The Thors diminishing in numbers, and as we can see, that was a very good push by ShoWTimE, knocked out so much of that force, but a new orbital command in the center is going to take a lot longer for ShoWTimE to retake his 4th base, and that means income-wise, we can see that both players, they don't have much money in the bank, and while they are relatively even at the moment, once this goal gets up and running, HeRoMaRinE is going to start pulling ahead income-wise tremendously, and that is what's really important in the late game, is you need that income to resupply. We see HeRoMaRiNE's already got a lot of gas. He just needs those minerals oh so desperately. So many mules getting cooled down, more scans going off saying, hey, what is in the middle? What has my opponent got? What do I need to counter that? And the answer is he needs some more Vikings to deal with these Voidways. He needs to make sure that he's got a good army. A single DT there is chipping away, but there goes down the scan. The missile turrets were taken out when the Planetary Fortress fell. More Widow Mines being added in as well. That's a nice little addition, to be honest, because that just means that any careless moving forward, especially to these clumped up Voidways, if a couple of Widow Mines do detonate on those clumped up Voidways, the splash damage could really swing the tide of battle into HeRoMaRiNE's favour. But HeRoMaRiNE, he's just out macroing his opponent at the moment. You see ShoWTimE pretty much grow. Only on the one mining base, the Voidway getting taken out, taking out the Widow Mines. One does manage to detonate before it dies, but here comes the big engagement. We do see the Vikings trying to engage. The Thors with the high impact payload dealing some nice damage, but so many Voidways are piling on the pain. The Vikings trying to help as best they can. The Thors getting taken out, some DTs chipping away as well. Storms now going down on a lot of these units, but HeRoMaRinE does look to be the victor just with those reinforcements. He had a few too many units, and with the storms, ShoWTimE will buy himself some time. But HeRoMaRinE, he was definitely the victor there. If we look at the loss tab though, it is nearly identical. I don't think I've ever actually seen such an even resources loss count so late in the game. 28,300 resources lost each, and that just shows that it is all coming down to who has the better income. A couple of probes carefully mining from this 5th base, but the income so superior for HeRoMaRinE, almost double the minerals per minute and a good 200 more gas per minute as well. So he is just able to produce way outproduce his opponent, and ShoWTimE, he is just left with just a small force here, and HeRoMaRinE, if he starts moving forward, he could be victorious. Some Immortals trying to come out, no Voidways remain, so the air threat has completely gone, and HeRoMaRinE, he's just being so passive. This is where he could really do with pushing forward, trying to punish his opponent, not allow him to get up a sizable force, but the Archons clearly being the threat, and well, the tank count a bit low, but with 3 more in production, with a good number of Thors, the Hellbats there as well, I think HeRoMaRinE could do it. He's a good 40 suppliers head as well. Would love to see HeRoMaRinE float this orbital command down, because there's no threat of it getting taken out, but instead he is just sitting on the bases he's comfortable on, but all mined out apart from this center base, which is already getting very low, so he's got to take some more expansion shortly. A few Widow Mines just clumping up towards the side. HeRoMaRinE knows this base is up and he didn't kill it, so I'm surprised he hasn't gone back just with a small force in order to pick it off, but up comes the Widow Mines. They could very well go and burrow themselves into the mineral line, and that would put an end to mining from here. And while the Nexus wouldn't go down, the probes are not going to be able to have any fun at all. So one probe will unfortunately die there. We do see a lot of probes getting pulled back. Some Archons coming up there along with the Observer, just going to try and deal with that, but by moving up into that position, that does mean that HeRoMaRinE could arch his way down and try and position himself behind ShoWTimE's army, preventing the retreat. That would be incredibly problematic. Long distance mining going down, and the Widow Mines are positioned around the back of the Nexus, so won't trigger on these probes trying to get in. But the center of the map has now been taken for HeRoMaRinE, and that just means that it's going to be very tough for ShoWTimE. HeRoMaRinE nearly re-maxed out. He's got Ravens coming down, he's got more Thors, he's got the Corvid reactor for the Ravens as well. So between everything, the upgrades starting to level out, 3-1 compared to 3-3. HeRoMaRinE really desperately needs to be upgrading that vehicle armor. But as we're seeing now, the tank's in a good siege position, that DT instantly getting scanned, and HeRoMaRinE, he's starting his advance, he's moving as close as he can. Those Widow Mines were taken out, but as we see, the force has been completely caught out of position, and that means ShoWTimE can attempt a base race, which he'll lose, or he's got to try and engage his army. He's trying to retake this 4th base as well. He's got some Zealots warping in as quickly as he can, but as we see, HeRoMaRinE taking his opponent's center base now, just with the tank. This map is getting split very advantageously for HeRoMaRinE. He's got these additional bases as well down in the bottom right that he could take should he want to. He has still got a good tank line, and that just means that ShoWTimE is sort of trapped. He's going to desperately struggle to try and get back to make sure that his main base and production is safe. But HeRoMaRinE just playing it passive. That missile turret granting the detection, but there isn't one on the other side, unfortunately. The DT will go down through to a couple of shells, but a couple of SCVs nearly died. So we can see ShoWTimE has been the better aggressor, picking off more workers throughout this game. But unfortunately, HeRoMaRinE, he does have mules, so while he's quite substantially behind in terms of the worker count by 27 rather, it does just mean that actually it's not a huge issue, because the mules are going to be cutting up the slack. We can see that the mineral income over double for HeRoMaRinE compared to ShoWTimE, but ShoWTimE does have the additional gas income. But when HeRoMaRine's maxed out, he doesn't need that gas, he can bank it up. He's getting up these additional gas now as well, which will help him. Some probes trying to get through, but HeRoMaRiNE just trying to get into a nice position, trying to make sure that he's isolated his opponent's army. I'm surprised he hasn't started pushing in, because I believe he knows that most of the force is up to the top left and is secure. But now there's the scan, sees it, definitely no question of a doubt. So just positioning his army to make sure that ShoWTimE cannot come back. Could send just even a small force up to try and knock out some of the production, which would be great. But the important thing for ShoWTimE is these 2 mining bases. They are his lifeline. If they were to go down, then he would have no income and he wouldn't be able to do much more. Some Zealots are warping in, just trying to add into this army. Another scan goes down, sees the Zealots joining, wants to get a full read, and we can see that a big engagement is likely to come down any second. We see that HeRoMaRinE is coming in from the bottom. No engagement taken by ShoWTimE at the moment. He's not got a good attack angle. He's cornered into the very edge of this map, and as we can see, already some great damage being done. The Raven flying overhead, the tanks, the Thors, they are chasing down the Battle Hellions, or Hellbats rather, just chasing as fast as they can. The Immortals are getting shelled and are taking damage. ShoWTimE is running away as fast as he can, but the problem is that his force is just so much smaller than that of HeRoMaRinE. Even if he deals some good damage here, he is going to be forced to take an engagement at some point. Thor's Hellbash trying to cut off the retreat. The planet, the orbital command in the center, forced to lift, is not getting repaired up yet, so is on fire. But there's the GG. A complete surround by HeRoMaRinE, an absolutely brilliant play. Very passive, taking the right engagements rather than the first ones. ShoWTimE, though, his harassment was brilliant as well. So, we saw some great TVP action. There was a long macro game. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm Madals. Thanks for watching. Like the video, leave a cool comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all tomorrow for yet another new cast. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.